Okay, so we've covered off sort of the trust, the comfort with interdependence, the self-disclosure and feedback. What else is in there that we need to know about in partner intelligence?
So yeah, I mean, the other one is highly relevant now, which is comfort with change. So before March, I'd have been talking about comfort with change anyway, because I see salespeople as change agents. They are there to help organizations change. Because for you to achieve those outcomes that we've talked about, you're probably going to have to do something different. Otherwise, you wouldn't need me. You wouldn't even. So that's because that isn't rocket science, So the salesperson has got to be so comfortable in change themselves to be able to help other people. So there's ways in which we spoke about that, and sort of just start to recognize that actually, as a salesperson, you're probably quite good at it because you experience a hell of a lot of it yourself. So just be very aware of what people's reactions to change is, and that some people work through it faster, some work slower. So very basically, we tend to sort of talk about resistors. So people are like, no, it's not going to change. I want to stay doing what I've always done. People who will adapt, but then people who will innovate, people who love it, people who go very, very fast. So that's kind of a very basic way to look at it. But certainly over the last couple of months, the model I've been pulling out probably nearly every other week is literally the change curve, and say, look, COVID hit us and it was horrible, and everyone's gone through this change because it has changed everybody at different paces. So the classic Kubler-Ross going through the sort of the denial into anger, into the sort of the depth of kind of depression and whatever, through to actually it's not so bad and becoming quite optimistic and seeing opportunities. We've all done it to some way, shape or form.
I think it's interesting because I've always worked in technology, so change is a constant. I mean, it's just frustratingly so at times, because you almost don't get to enjoy having arrived at sort of the completion of one change before another one begins. But it certainly keeps you on your toes and keeps you learning. And I imagine that's been this process for a lot of people, that, if they are not accustomed to change, they've certainly been thrown in the deep end. But I also don't think those changes are finished. I think that I think in some ways we're actually at the beginning of the change. And I say that, and I'm curious what you think. We had processes that had to change very, very quickly. But I think that the broader business changes we're going to see unfolding in the coming year, I would imagine. What do you think about that? And how best will we be prepared if we adopt these sort of partnering intelligence attitudes and attributes?
Yeah, well, as you say, change is constant. And I should be able to say who said that, because I'm pretty sure I put that in the book. I think it's Heraclitus, but I don't know. There you go. Must know own material better. Make note to self. Page whatever. Yeah. No, but yes, it is constant, but there'll always be some element of change. I think why I like that model is that yes, salespeople can use their partnering skills to help people with it. And so one of the best ways of helping people with their change is to recognize where they are. Again, because a lot of good salespeople will be fairly optimistic by nature, will have probably got through this quite quickly, will have kind of blasted through that curve. They'll be up on the positive side. Hey, look, actually, we can do stuff differently now. Mm-hmm. People need to. So there's opportunities for sort of the stuff we sell or the way we work, or people are thinking differently. Brave new world, fantastic. I'm not sure that maybe there's some people still in denial. No, it's not happening. It will go back to normal soon. So if you're at one end of the spectrum, giving, yeah, it's great, come on, and this one, oh, why? Nothing is different. Or even, oh, this is terrible. It ain't like it used to be. There can be a real mismatch in those energies. And actually, sometimes just sort of being all positive and come on and pick yourself up, that's not necessarily the best way to deal with it. So just recognizing where somebody is on their path and how fast they're going through it, so that then you can adapt to that and think, okay, maybe I just need to slow myself down here, help them, rather than go charging off into the sunset. Perhaps it's about supplying them more information. It's helping them think about it. It's helping them reflect on stuff.
Yeah.
It's not even giving them the options yet. It's just giving them the understanding that, this stuff is real and it's here to stay.
And perhaps it's appreciating how it's real for them differently. And that it makes me think about your comfort with interdependence, that if we have to rely on one another, we also have to calibrate
Yeah.
to where someone else is at. And like, you so well articulated, some people will have gone through the curve and they're on the upswing because they've got that belief that we're going to come out of it, we're going to come through it, it might be slow, but it's happening. Whereas others, things are still sort of falling apart, or the dust hasn't settled, and so they can't imagine coming up yet because they don't know that they've hit the bottom. And if those are the customers that you're working with, or the industries you're working in, trying to find that common ground and get back to where are there outcomes we can help you with, is probably quite difficult.
Yeah, but as I say, by recognizing and just then saying, okay, if I was there, what I'd be wanting are a whole load of options. Well, no, you're not, though. It's not about you, it's about the customer. They don't need options, they just need an understanding. Get into insight mode, get into helping them realize, start opening their eyes, do that sensitively. This is where your emotional intelligence will start to kick in a big way, and think, just how I do want to move them forward, and I do want to do it with good intent, and maybe it needs a bit of challenging, like you say. Maybe actually they do need a bit of a push, but it's exactly what am I doing, because we are at a different pace here. So I just need to be helping them. How can they start to see stuff? And then, because for me it's clear as day some of the opportunities, not for them. So just help with it.
Yeah.
And we're already talking about the last element, which is future orientation. They all work very much together, and so that's kind of that's why I present them in that order normally. Because the change in the future, and we haven't got a crystal ball, but there's things which people, and we're talking about salespeople can do. Well, not predict the future, as I say, but certainly to sort of scope it better, to talk about it, to understand it, and at least be looking towards it. And if there's there's lots of things, but this is the one thing that they do is, again, help people they're working with, help themselves to a degree, make decisions looking forward rather than backward. Don't throw everything that's happened in the past away, because that will inform you to a degree. But if all your decisions are made looking back, well, that certainly isn't clever in this current environment, is it? Because we didn't have COVID then. There weren't, we could do things. We could go and jump on a plane, and we could go and meet people at a restaurant. We could do all those things. But actually, that's not even an option now. So you have to be looking forward and think about what those potential changes are and how stuff might be different to be able to make decisions better. So that for me kind of boils down into visions, if you like, and better decision making.
I think that's such an important point to remember. Like you said, history always serves as a good teacher, but with a future orientation, I think you're focusing on what's possible, and you're kind of trying to pursue the art of the possible. And there are times when we look back and we focus too much on where we've been and how we've gotten where we are, that it can constrain us from pursuing what might be possible because of fear. Right? The things that haven't worked in the past, or we've done it this way and that didn't work. And it's like, but things keep changing. So even if we did it exactly the same way as we did it 5 or 10 years ago, most likely we would probably have a different outcome, even if that was what we did. But what if we freed ourselves to just think of it as a brand new problem that we've never addressed? How would we do that? And that's certainly tough, but I think gives us the best opportunity. Well, that's been amazing, and I really can't wait to read more about that. But I think there's something that goes quite well with that, and that's a value framework that you've developed. And I thought we might be able to move on and speak about that. How does that sound?
Yeah, no, perfect. Because if you think about it, what we've done is we've talked about very briefly sales and selling. And again, we could have gone off down any of those methodologies. We could get another hour on Challenger just itself, but there's all that good stuff that exists already. Oh, it is on video, yeah, of course. So you can see my hand. So that's in one hand, if you like. We've got the partnering skills in the other. All good stuff here, and salespeople think, oh, I've got these things. I need to mesh them together now. How can I mesh this stuff together to make it work for me so I can pull in, maybe the approaches that I've got and understand and I'm working pretty well with. This understanding, which actually, yes, it made sense, and I'm doing a lot of it anyway, because salespeople should be doing a lot of this anyway. That's when I came across it, it jumped to me because I thought, just those things make sense, but we need to bring those together.
Yeah.
That's what the value framework does. And so I look at, that's what I developed, but with a big load of help. I actually took a lot of the inspiration for the value framework from the whole practice of customer success management. So I've done a sort of bit of reading and understanding of that, which is all about outcomes. Whoa, guess what? Well, that's got to be an interesting thing. How can salespeople learn from that as well? So the value framework, VALUE, is actually based on what Cisco used. I think they might have changed now, but certainly used at one stage when they were preparing people to be good customer success managers. It's not exactly the same. I've changed some of the elements of it, but I love the acronym value and all that kind of stuff. I like that kind of thing. But it does kind of give us that framework, which, yeah, you could look at it as a process, though I would tend to sort of present it more in circular form because it sort of keeps going around and it's iterative anyway. But what value framework broadly does is it gets us to validate. So old-fashioned sales terminology, qualify. So is this the right kind of opportunity? And again, I would say, use old-fashioned, whatever your favored way of qualifying is. Is it BANT, EBANT, MENT, MAN, TC, Scotsman, all those good things. But there's another element to it, which is if I'm going to go with this partnering type approach, am I going to get that back? Because it takes two to tango. So I've kind of like, there's another sort of thing in there we can do, which is kind of almost like a psychological qualification. You sort of the partnering approach and how well would they respond to that? Because if it looks as though they will respond well, actually, yeah, this is another big tick in the box.
So it's a partnering mindset, that you have to have.
Yeah. And so it's just asking more questions and just doing a little bit digging, saying, how do they work? How do they work with their people? How do they work with their customers? What experience we had? So it's asking questions just to sort of think about things a little bit more on another level, to be able to say, well, okay, this is good. How can we move into a alignment? So what could we do to work together to really start to drive some outcomes, to really get mutual benefit, to generate value? And this is almost like the desk work, if you want to call it that. So this is the sort of doing my homework, working out what I could do and say, okay, right, I can now go prepared and have some really good conversations. And that's the L for leverage. So I'm going to leverage that work I've done to have the conversations, the right conversations, right people. As we've just said, get the right people having the right conversations, maybe. It's to do all of the stuff that we need to do to be able to get to this point where we can say, look, this is how we can work together. Yeah, so again, very much it could be, certainly as we're going up the scale of more towards a strategic or enterprise selling, that, yeah, it's going to be the whole team approach that, yeah, we've worked out how we can do stuff here to get to the U for underpin. So we need to underpin, we need to sort of stack up, we need to prove and demonstrate how we can do these things together and agree on that and work it through and put all the plans into place so that we get into the E for evolve. Yeah, that's the last element. So, we want this thing to be ongoing. This isn't sort of one hit, sell, off we go type stuff. It's very much about the relationships. So it's probably kind of repeating, doing a lot of those elements. I played with it actually. I thought evolve, expand. Yeah, equally land and expand is kind of a concept, isn't it? I don't know. I know it's not, but for me that sounds a bit kind of, I don't know. It doesn't quite sit so comfy with me. Exploit, I thought at one stage. I thought, what? You're going to put exploit into a sales framework? Yeah, because we're working together by that stage, and we're going to exploit together all the opportunities. But I thought, well, no, but that's just all evolve anyway. So I went back to evolve in the end. But that's what the value framework does. It pulls together those things that we've talked about and gives you a more practical way. Because, yeah, we had a lovely conceptual conversation so far, but it's a practical way that you can start to apply these.
Yeah.
And what I've done in the book is, again, considered that selling will operate on different levels. We've kind of gravitated our conversation into a more value-based, strategic, enterprise type sell. But I like to think on a sort of a scale of complexity and value, where the value to me as a salesperson, value to you as the customer, that increases, and the complexity, the sophistication, number of people, type of solution. There's this kind of continuum, and for argument's sake, I've sort of called these 4 different levels. it's not. It's a continuous grey areas. People watching this will understand that. But just so that you can say there's kind of a classic sale: ask before tell. Yeah, good. If it's not doing that, it's not selling, in my humble opinion. You can still apply partnering skills to that. Moving into more the consultative or solution selling, again, big argument if we want to about those two terms, but for me they're very, very similar. Yeah, it's asking questions better and really kind of exploring, and maybe bringing in the challenge approach, which moves us in towards more value-based selling, which is more about the insight generation we've talked about, right up into the enterprise stroke strategic selling at the top end. And what I try to do is say, look, you can take the value framework, you can operate at all of those levels. So here's a very simple way of doing stuff. Here's more complex stuff. So that whoever's reading, so yeah, that's me, that speaks to me.
Yeah.
Or practically, they can go, actually, I'll have a little bit from there and a little bit from there and a little bit from there. And there we go. I have made the value framework mine, because actually we need to work value-based in this area, but actually more simply in this area. So that's how that bit works.